Well, it's on Ride Along, so it's happening here.
Came over here. What does it mean? You know, I grew up in what I guess we call a typical family.
We break all the stories, and that's just a fact. And that's why everyone has a story to tell.
Ride Along Live, yeah, it's the real deal.
Williams Funeral Service serve you with dignity and compassion as you mourn. Every day, we embark on the journey of life, and one day, the journey will end. It's on that day that you can entrust the celebration of life of your loved ones to David Williams Funeral Service. Call 718-291-3823.
Night Riders, how you guys doing? Welcome to Tuesday on the Ride. Prime time Tuesday on the Ride. Welcome. Hope you guys doing good. V! Congratulations to V. V, you're the first one up. First one up is V. Thank you guys so much. Guys, as you come and go ahead and share the thing, we have a very interesting conversation today. Yes. A very interesting young lady. She is an inspiration. I tell you that. I've seen her, I've followed her work. She has done so much. We're going to learn a lot about her. But not only about her, guys. Just recently, a new political organization, new political party was launched in Grenada. The name of that party is called Power. So not only going to learn about the person behind Power, we're also going to learn about the new political party and their plans for the future. I saw a lot of you guys was asking about what election is on the 23rd. What is that I'm hearing? New political party? Yeah, new political party. She's going to tell us all about the plans and stuff like that. Her name is Miss Andrea Rapier, and she's here with us for the whole hour, including, guys, if I feel like you guys are sharing the program and doing what you're supposed to do and everything like that, here's what I'm going to do. Possibly, I'm going to open up the phone lines so you guys could chat with her as well. How about that? We got a deal? All right, we got a deal. So let me start by doing it as well. I'm going to share the program a few times, and I want you guys to do the same as well. Everybody share the program. Share the program once or share it up twice. Tag a few friends, because we are going to learn about the new political party, Power. Yeah, Night Riders. Let me share here. A few pages, and Vincent, Trinidad is locked on. That's good. Yes, this one locked on, yeah. Gotta make sure we give everybody a taste of it. Yeah, Veronica, how you doing? Yeah. Nafisia, that's not nice. Let me share one more time, guys. Sharing is caring, right? Yeah. And guys, we're on this journey because yesterday we had an exclusive interview with Mr. Tobias Clement. And it was a good conversation. In fact, I went back yesterday and I watched the program last night, and I watched the program all over again. And I read every single comment. There was over 3,000 comments on there, and I read every single one of them. And tell you right now, some of you guys have no behavior, right? But you already know that already. All right, guys. Without further ado, let us introduce to you Miss Andrea Rapier. If I could have sing, I would have given you that introduction, that singing melodic introduction. But I can't sing, so I won't do it. I won't mess up your day.
I am busy sharing.
I'm doing it as well. Yeah, I'm
I got my
sure.
head down, just punching my phone, sharing it with everybody.
Did
Anyway, thank
did I
you.
cut you off guard? Did I cut you off guard?
I was busy trying to share. Oh my God. Well, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I have to say that I don't take it lightly when a host decides to share me with their guests, with their faithful followers, because
Yes.
obviously they trust you and they trust who you bring on the platform and they trust you to make good choices for them. So I feel honored. I don't take it for granted. And so I just want to say thank you.
No
And I hope
problem.
you have engaged today with just an open mind. It's a good day in the world. You know, there's so many things happening that you could frown upon, but there's sometimes you just have to grab the moment and put your energy and just make it work for you. So I hope everybody takes a chance to make this moment one of those.
Yeah. And as I said, as I continue to say all the time, keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Feed your mind with, because if you come in with a closed mind, everything that Andrea will say is about to say, you will block it off. But keep an open mind. Learn a little bit about Andrea and her project. So Andrea, I've read your resume. Very extensive resume, Andrea. I learned that you was it the US Army?
Yes, I was 5 years. Uh-huh.
What? Desert Storm?
Right. I did not deploy to Desert Storm, but I served during the end of the Cold War, the last year.
Yeah.
Storm, of course. I went through basic training during Desert Storm with the intention of deploying. And I think God knew I needed to stay on safe ground. So the week before we were to deploy, the President Bush at the time declared the war over and officially no more troops were deployed. So I sort of escaped that. However, I got the training for war. And I really appreciate that because it's tougher training. Your army assignment is much tougher when it's in a war context. And so whether you deploy or not specifically to that field, you're still trained and continuously in readiness for it. And so I had the blessing of serving through the Cold War, Desert Storm, Desert Shield. So that had its benefits in my growth and who I am today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What part of Grenada you're from? Your
I am
roots and
from
stuff in Grenada.
Belmont. I am from what I proudly call Little London. When we
Uh-huh.
were growing up in Gary Day, there's that section between the Paddock Junction in Belmont and the Springs Junction, and that was Little London. And I think it's because everybody there went to England to study or something like that. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
so I grew up there, right across from Grenada Baptist Church. The house is still sitting there. My grandmother's house, who at the time German Pope, she died a couple of years ago, and she was actually permanent secretary to Eric Gary. So I basically grew up on the knees of Sir Eric. Every afternoon after work, they had bourbon and gin at our house. And
Mhm.
though I were a child at the time, I sort of was in this space of the politics and I think that energy sort of comes off on you when you're in that environment. You know, children absorb so much before age 7, and that's exactly the period of time from age 1 to 7 that I was in that environment. So that's sort of the start off. I went to teach a mod school for any of the Grenadians from way back then.
Mhm.
I went to teach a mod school, and then I went to Woburn School. And so I passed common entrance from Woburn and went to AHS.
Uh-huh.
The girls, we know who we are. The
Yeah.
rowdy, noisy game changers, that's us. And I finished AHS, and the whole group of us, we were enjoying school so much that we decided, let's go back one more year and do a whole new set of subjects. And so
Really?
we went back, we paid for, yes, we didn't want to leave AHS. And so we went back, paid for subjects, and then I migrated before sitting those second sets of CXCs and migrated to the US and spent about 6 months there and moved to Sweden. And there I learned the Swedish language, became quite proficient in that, came back to the United States, joined the Army, went to university and the Army simultaneously. And then I was assigned to Germany, and that was part of the end of the Cold War period. I spent a year there. And that was also very enriching, learned the German language proficiently as well. And so I did 3-year tour in the European US military and then came back to the US, where I was assigned to Texas for a while. I left the Army though and became an entrepreneur. And I found that as I pursued education and business, there was a disconnect between what I was learning and what I was experiencing. And so I literally had to design my own education. I had to design, take what I want from academia, and then find seminars and coaches and mentors. Spent a lot of money on it, but really, really built on top the foundation of what Grenada made for me. And eventually I became a mom. I'm still doing mom and entrepreneurship together because I just believed in that motherhood is the highest call of a woman. I'm
Right.
also kind of like that. And I know not every woman gets that opportunity, but I think every woman could mother someone. And I happen to be blessed with 6 children and 5 boys and 1 girl, and dedicated my life to that as a businesswoman, and was successful doing both because I could control that.
Yeah.
So forward along, forward along, I lived in Europe different times, in different countries, and came to recognize that Grenada needed us Grenadians, that the issues that we have in our country is going to take Grenadians at home and abroad together to work it out. And those of us who have left, we are children of the soil. And there's a story of brain drain, which I'm so against that story, because the brain drain idea says that the best of Grenadians left the country, and that's why it's in the state it's in. I disagree with that. I think the root is always greater than the fruit. You cut a tree down, the root's going to shoot another one.
Right.
It's going to continue to grow. So I think the root is our country, and that's what the greatest potential is for us. However, the prosperity and opportunity and wellness and equality for regional impact is not something that's sustainable in our Grenadian community. So those of us who left got that power. When we left Grenada, we got access to power, prosperity, opportunity, wellness, equality, and the ability to have an impact. And because we got access to power, we were able to grow from that root that we received from Grenada.
Right.
And I think it's only right that we return to that. And even on a tree, even when you look at your mango tree and a mango falls to the ground and it rots, it nourishes the root from which it came. And so it's important for those of us, like you're doing, Junior, that you have something to give back and you give it to home. And so because our party's name is Power, don't be fooled. We're not here because we want to take political office for the prestige, for the money, for all the things that's happening now. And we understand that the paradigm is what people have experienced. That's what they see in politics. That's how they see leadership, because that's what's been modeled. So you can't expect anything else. However, there are people right here in Grenada. I'm just one of, and there are people abroad as well who believe that the country is capable of more, and that there's a point where you have to say enough's enough. It's going to be up to me.
Right.
And I just happen to be one of those people who feel
When you look at the Caribbean, Grenada, but the Caribbean as a whole, what are some of the biggest problems you see that impacted the region?
Leadership, lack of it. The biggest problems have been the governance. And I'm going to everything has a cause. There's cause and effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's law of gravitational force. We understand that everything that goes up must come down. But if you look at the Caribbean as a whole, after slavery, after the abolition of slavery, where we became proprietors of our own destiny, when our governments began to look just like us, right? Brown people, black people, yellow people, pink people, peach people, white people, because the Caribbean is that kind of kaleidoscope. Right. When we begin to govern ourselves, we stayed rooted. Like talking about root again, we stayed rooted in colonialism and religion. And we have to remember that during slavery, religion was used to tame us, right? Religion was used to tame us. So it was the pacifier. It was the sedative. Religion was a sedative that we turned to religion as a way of, as an outlet for our pain and suffering. But at the same time, when we did that, it didn't tell you that you were born sovereign, that you were made in the likeness of God, that God himself calls you a God, and that he gave you the same power that he himself had, which is why he made you in his image and likeness. And that power is called sovereignty, the ability to exist independent and be decisive, independent of any other being, any other thought, any other element. That is sovereignty. And that power is harnessed in every being born. And religion took that away. It gave you a paradigm that said you should yield it. And so we yielded that sovereignty And colonialism wrapped its grip around that. And so we were choked by this two fist of colonialism and religion. And governments that looked just like us, sound just like us, came up poor just like us, descendants of slaves just like us. When they got in position to be the difference, they decided to become the new taskmaster. And that is the problem of the Caribbean, that they've been small-minded and short-sighted. Small-minded in that they have only thought of themselves, and in a world, just take Grenada's world, 110,000 at home and over 500,000 overseas. They became small-minded because they only saw themselves, only themselves. And then they became short-sighted because they only saw the immediate gratification of their own pockets and their own pleasures. But if they were open-minded, they would have seen an opportunity for everyone, all of us, descendants of slaves, all of us, to elevate together in our own sovereignty, to create a strong unit in the Caribbean. And they would have been long-sighted in that understanding that if we honor that sovereignty, that personal right to power in every individual and create environments for thriving, that in the long term, the Caribbean would become an economic power and perhaps even a military power. Because look at where we are sitting geographically. We are the gateway to the Caribbean Sea. We are the wall between two oceans and two hemispheres. We have a lot of power. This is why the triangular trade used us as a pivotal point. This is why the Caribbean today is still the triangular trade for human trafficking. The world has seen, the pirates and the vultures see the potential, the strategic position of us geographically and our potential as a people. And they have done what they've needed to do to meet their own objectives. And our leadership, short-sighted and small-minded, have failed to see the value in elevating the Caribbean, in elevating each of the islands that they're responsible for. Because of that problem, we have the problem in education and healthcare and crime and prostitution and illiteracy, in bad infrastructure, in the destruction of our coastlines and the selling out of our properties to foreign investors, and putting concrete investments in place where we can really capitalize on natural beauty of our geography. Because of the short-sightedness, because of the small-mindedness, they've missed that, and they've costed several generations in that era. So it is time for us, Caribbean people, at home and abroad, to do a couple pivotings. It's time for us first to pause and say, wait a minute, it's time for it to stop. How do we stop it? How do we put the brake and raise our voice and advocate and say, no, this is not okay. And why isn't it okay? Not just pointing out the problem, but bringing a solution that's embedded in all of us, actually. Bringing a solution to say, this has to be fixed, and I'm going to be part of fixing it, and I know how to. Bringing our humility with that and saying, it's going to take me and more. So I'm going to hold with other people, and we're going to push against that barrier together.
Let me ask you a quick question on that note. You spoke about colonialization. What role do you think that have in the education that we receive and the Caribbean receive? Colonialization and education.
Well, first of all, and I can't say that was an error. We adopted an education system after slavery, right? We didn't design one, we adopted one. Because if you look at it, we were hovering between two separate cultures by the time slavery was abolished. It was the culture of our original home in Africa, and then it was the retraining and the reconditioning and the induction of fear that was conforming us to another way, that broke down our minds, that broke down our power, that broke down our self-respect, that broke down our family structure, that broke down our sense of community. All of these things were broken down. Slavery was abolished, and then we were responsible for rebuilding it, caught between two places. So when we adopted that education system, there was no point where, because our leadership was short-sighted and small-minded, there was no point where there was a hesitation to go further, to say, let us now sculpture with deliberation what happens next for us. There wasn't that. it was just opportunity. It was an opportunistic moment. And
Right.
the opportunity was taken, but it wasn't valued for what it was really worth, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't believe that there are so little resources in the Caribbean that if one person prospers, it hinders another. But the people who have positioned themselves to be political leaders have taken these opportunities as if they allow the rest of us to prosper, that somehow we diminish their own accumulation. But
Mhm.
it's actually the stark opposite. The more of us are productive, the more of us aspiring, the more of us dreaming, the more of us working, the more productivity, the more there is to go around. It's designed in humanity. It's designed for us to have it this way, this interconnection, this ecosystem of codependence and interdependence, this intermingling of human spirit to create something bigger. And we've missed that, but we don't have to continue to miss it. I think it's time for all of us to say, wait, wait, wait. There's an evolution that can happen and it's going to happen regardless of whether I participate or not. Only by participating do I get to be a molecule in that evolution versus subject to whatever is left of it.
Right.
I get to be an architecturing part of it. I get to add my color, my flavor, my scent, my taste, my
Right.
voice.
And just like the Constitution, because when you look at the Constitution, that was basically adapted. A lot of things in the Constitution was just taken wholesale. There are things that nitty-gritty in the Constitution that really doesn't apply to regular day life, right? For us in the Caribbean. And another thing that I see that happened in the Caribbean, when the difficulty in changing the Constitution or adapting or making changes to the Constitution, having a two-third majority, it was purposely done like that because it had to be hard.
Right.
It had to be a difficult task to change the articles in the Constitution. What's your thoughts on the Constitution, the adaptation of the Constitution, and also referendum in changing articles in the parts of the Constitution?
I think it's actually long overdue, but I think as government, we need an opportunity, and power wants to take that opportunity to go through our entire constitution line by line, line by line. And the reason I say that, in building power, we had to create a constitution for our organization. So of course, we did it the smart way. Let's see what all the political constitutions are out there, and let's see which one is closest to our values, and then take that, tweak it, and or innovate it to what we want. We found in going through those constitutions that there was so much ambiguity. Ambiguity is a dangerous thing in a constitution.
Yes.
There was just enough ambiguity in the constitution so that politicians can make it relative to what they want
What they
when
want.
they.
Yeah. Subjective.
So
So
we so we had to start all over again. And we sat down and went through an architecture, a constitution that a third grader, a child in standard 3, should be able to read it and regurgitate and say, oh, that's what that means.
right.
That's what that means. And when we looked at the ambiguity and we took it apart and we got very specific, very specific. There are no shades of gray. Our constitution leaves too many shades of gray. Our constitution needs to be rewritten by our people. And one of the mistakes we make in the Caribbean is that we assume our people are not intelligent enough for such discourse, but we are. Politicians just have to stop talking out of their ties, speak to people in a way they understand. Speak to the people the way they do when they sit in their living rooms at home, kicking back with their friends. Speak to the people the way they wanted to be spoken to when they were in high school or secondary school, primary school, right? When they were in secondary or primary school. But they speak in these elevated terms, this long, big language that the common person is clueless.
Right.
No human being will ever admit to being clueless.
True.
So we pretend we understand when
Right.
all along we are in the dark, and they make decisions for us. And because we know we don't understand, we make the assumption that they must be right because they understood. And we are being prostituted. We are being pimped because they know what they're doing and we don't. But they're doing what they're doing, extracting from us our youth, our energy, our creativity, our innovation, our potential, our power.
Right.
And our constitution needs to be taken down line by line. And I'll tell you, my imagination can go kind of far. I'll put it back sometimes. But I literally imagine taking the constitution to the classrooms for about 6 months. You take one term and you go through that constitution line by line with every student. You have every student write those lines in the way they understand it. Regurgitate what that means and write it in your words. Now take it home and discuss it with your family and say, here's what the Constitution says. And find out what your family thinks about that. And we come back and we talk about it again.
Right.
And we have town hall meetings that politicians want to have now. We do town hall meetings where we explain it. We get a common Grenadian who understands. We have a lot of very brilliant men sitting at the rum shop. They're drunk, but they're not foolish. Let them explain it to the other guy in the rum shop. Let's have a constitution 6 months in our country. And then, one by one, we have a national vote. At the end of 12 months, we can have a constitution that the entire country gets behind, that is relevant to our people. And that conversation includes the diaspora.
Yeah.
Because one of the mistakes the Caribbean is making is that the diaspora is the milking cow for our GDP. Send the barrel, send the money, send the cell phone, send the x-ray machines, send all your charity, be philanthropists, but stay out of our business. And then the diaspora, everybody wants home, everybody wants the root, and as we age, they've proven in medicine that as you age, you start reverting to childhood and you want the things you tasted and the sounds that you heard and the music that you heard. You start longing for them as you age. And so the diaspora, work 2 and 3 jobs. You're in New York, you know what I'm talking about, Junior.
Yeah.
Who went from first shift to second shift and maybe picked up a third one before ever even jumping that bus to go home. My mother did that. To send a barrel to make sure we have shoes for school and shirts and everything. And then send a little money to buy that little lot of land. And some of them went as far as building a house or thinking they were building one because they were needing money for one. Only at retirement age to find that Grenada doesn't have health care. The Caribbean doesn't have the kind of health care that my now elderly health condition needs care for. I can't afford the medicine and there's no government programs. But I have my Medicare here in the US. So I have to stay here because I can afford health care here. There are no benefits for me if something happens to me. There's no system that takes care of me. So guess what? We have exiled the diaspora that has fed us.
Yeah.
Indirectly, we have exiled them.
Yeah.
So it's important for us. We just have to start over, understanding that what the past has given us was good for then, but it's not good for now, and it's not good for tomorrow.
On a programming note, let me tell you guys, we're speaking with Miss Andrea Rapier, very, very talented, long list of resume. I mean, she has done so much. We're also going to be speaking about the launch of a new political organization called Power and what Power is all about. We're talking right now about education. And someone made this reference to education to me one day, and they said that some politician purposely try to keep the population uneducated so that information is just going to fly over their head. Do you believe that in our region, are you seeing that? Politicians keeping the population uneducated or trying to keep them as uneducated as possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We see that in Grenada clearly, and I have friends from other islands who say the same. We see how the Imani program has been structured. We see the level of illiteracy is telling us something. If you also look at the demographic of who is voting for whom, who is supporting whom, who is showing up at whose rallies, who is talking and supporting who online in the political conversation, you could tell by the language, you can tell by conversations where the ignorance is and where the support is going. And that is what has fed it. And it's unfortunate. And there are 2 different kinds of leadership, but it's still all leadership, right? Whether you were a leader who was a vulture and a devourer of the people that you led, or if you were a leader that developed and elevated the people that you led. There are 2 kinds. And the former we see in Grenada that the former type, which is what we've had, shows up to prey on the need that poverty and ignorance provides. That environment is a suction cup for votes. And I said yesterday at our launch, I made a statement, and I don't know if it made it through any of the press, but our vote is the currency of exchange from which we bargain for our future. And we should spend it well. If I go to the store and I want a malt and it costs $2 and I put $2, I want a malt. Don't give me a chiclet.
Right.
You know, I want a malt. Don't take my $2 off the counter and then give me a chiclet and tell me you're done.
Right.
You know, I want a malt. When I put that vote down, that's the currency I'm spending for my future.
But some people don't even look at the poll, at voting like that. They look at it from, they live in a household of a political party. Their grandmother voted for that political party. Their great-grandmother, then they're going to vote. They don't ask no question. They just vote the way that they their parents or their grandparents vote without considering exactly what you're talking about, which is very important. Not just giving away your vote, but holding your vote as a bargaining chip.
Yes. Yes. And you see, I don't know if you've ever heard the story of the ham. So this young couple gets married and Christmas, their first Christmas, and the wife is about to cook a ham and she cuts off like a third of the ham and cooks just the 2/3.
Right.
And the next Christmas comes around and she did the same thing. Well, the third Christmas, the husband is now curious and he says, honey, but why are you cutting off the ham? We're losing meat. And she said, well, that's what my mother always did.
Mm-hmm.
And so he became quite curious and he called the mother-in-law and said, Mom, why are we cutting off a third of the ham? And she said, well, son, that's what my mother did. And so he goes to grandma and said, Grandma, so what's the deal with the ham? And she said, son, I never had a big enough pot. So I cut off a third of the ham. You see, I don't fault the grandparents for the vote they made, but the next generation need to know why. And ask the question, what was relevant for grandma when she made that vote? Is it relevant for me and my future with my vote?
Right.
And every generation must ask this question. Who am I now? What's happening in the world now? What are my needs now? And of the political choices, who would meet that need? And the need that you have is a need for power, not for galvanize on your roof. You could do that yourself. With power, you could do that yourself. If you have prosperity and opportunity, if you are well, body, soul, spirit, emotion, in your community, if you're well, if you have equal access to opportunity and the things that you desire on your terms, if you can have an impact to uplift someone else's life, what's the galvanize? That's easy for you. That's easy. If there's a pothole in the road, you can go get a bucket of gravel and pour it in there yourself.
Yeah.
The power is in your vote.
Yeah.
So you have to determine what power looks like for you. What does prosperity look like for me?
And each individual person needs to ask himself that question. So yesterday, I was privy to a live that popped up on my feed, and I saw the launch of a new political party. New political parties 30 days before election. Mm-hmm. What could that be? So I watched the live, and I was trying to conceptualize the idea. Why are we seeing the launch of a new political organization 30 days before an election? Mm-hmm. So help me understand this. The launch of power. First of all, explain power to us, right?
Yeah.
And the rationale behind launching a new political organization 30 days or about a month before general election.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with what is power.
Right.
Power is an organization of concerned citizens, concerned Grenadians, who decided that a business model leadership is what Grenada would need for the future, and that what was missing and what is needed is power, prosperity, opportunity, wellness, equality, and regional impact. That's what we need. In whatever form each individual needs it, that's what we need.
So power is an acronym.
Power is an acronym.
Prosperity.
Opportunity.
Opportunity.
Wellness.
Wellness.
Equality.
Equality.
Regional impact.
Regional impact.
Yes.
All right.
That's,
Okay. So it's an acronym. All right. Okay. Power is an acronym. Okay. Go ahead.
but we do like it just as the word that it is. The word is power.
Okay.
And we selected that word on what the word power itself means. That in the true sense of power, it means ability, it means competence, right? So in the true sense of the word power, we want that word, but it also fitted in the model of what we believe and what we experience and what people on the ground, what Grenada is saying they need, what Grenada is saying they want. And no one can argue that, actually. No one has argued that, against that. Why now? First of all, power started in 2021. It didn't just get started. And we could have launched earlier. But we realized the environment that we are in, the importance of the mission that we have set forth, what that mission means to Grenada should we succeed or fail at it, and how important it was that we do it right. And by doing it right, making sure it was a vision that is not just a promise, but it's a potential, it's a practical performance that could be delivered.
Right.
So we've done that now. We know that. We have our business model, we have an ecosystem, and within each ecosystem is a smaller system in which to develop that. Why did we launch during the election? As a matter of fact, we launched prior to the announcement of the election date.
Okay.
Our press launch, which is what you witnessed yesterday,
Right. The press launch.
was an opportunity for the press to be up close and personal and get to the meat of exchange. We felt like they needed an exposure to us so that they can have the freedom to ask questions and have a discourse with us. But we were out before that. The Prime Minister called for elections after power, a week and a half after power began to sound our trumpet. Now, another advantage of now is that this is when Grenadians are thinking about their political decision. If we launch power where there is no political energy, it's just another organization quietly doing what they're doing and sounding off here and there in the abstract. Moments matter.
Right.
And the energy is never lost. It could be redistributed. In the moment of the energy of the political environment, it was important for us to use that energy to say, hey, brothers, hey, sisters, wake up. You deserve more. Know that you're shopping for leadership. Shop wisely. Now that you're in the grocery store with your bag, fill it up with as much as you can. Now that you're going to exchange this value, this currency, this asset of your vote, listen, I'm giving you a tip. Choose power. Choose no matter who you vote for, vote based on power.
Right.
Vote based on prosperity and opportunity and wellness and equality and impact, right?
But are you going to be contesting this election, or you are setting up yourself now for the next election?
We are setting ourselves up and we are contesting a few seats, of course. And the reason that we're contesting a few seats is that we realize that once you register a political party in Grenada, you are on the ballot.
Okay.
So then why waste the paper? We're on the ballot. But here's the thing. If we weren't contesting or we sounded like we weren't interested, people would be also less interested in what we have to say. And what we have to say is important for the Grenadian people. It's not that power thinks that we are the only people that have a vision for the country. It is not that power thinks that only our candidates are best suited for the country. There are candidates in other parties that are good people, good intention for the country, and they will serve it with integrity and they will serve unselfishly and they will do a good job. If you choose that person, then you chose power. You chose someone who would advocate and represent your prosperity and your opportunity and your wellness and your equality and regional impact.
Who are your candidates? Who are your slate of candidates?
So far, we are disclosing 3, which is Ian Roberts and I, and Orisha Joseph. And there's a question, I want to just finish answering that question real quickly.
Sure, no problem.
My thought. Another, and probably the most important reason of all, why now, is that as the early days of the campaign started revving up, I don't know if you were paying attention, Junior. A lot of Grenadians were paying attention and shaking their heads and going, here we go again. The drama began. The theater has started. And when we paid attention, there was no content. No one was promising Grenadians something that was worth their vote. No one was respecting the Grenadian people enough to say, down with the theater, and now let's deliver content. Let's have a discourse. Let's hear from Grenadian people, and let's talk about our worth, and let's talk about the future and where we want to go from here. We're in a mess. We all know that. But do we stay in the mess? Is there a way out? If there is, what is that way, and what is my part in it? That conversation was not happening. So to provoke that elevation, to provoke that kind of value, we had to step out and begin to deliver that value, and thus setting the bar where people will expect to hear more from everyone else. And we have succeeded. I don't know if you've noticed. With some people, we have succeeded. Others, their tricks have worked for a couple of years, 20-something years. I think they're too old to change their stripes at this point. But there has been a lot of elevation in the conversation. And for that, Power is happy that now Grenadians are hearing more value, more content, and they can make a better choice on the buffet that's in front of them. Again, you have an asset. Your vote is your currency. Shop well.
Right. So about the candidates, right? And what you could probably include that in the answer there. What would be the difference between Power and say a TGM who came in, dibble and dabble, and then, well, it looked as if they didn't see themselves viable. They're not contesting the election. What makes Power different than TGM?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question with a little bit of some petals to it. Okay, I'll imagine it as a blossom here. I would say first about TGM. There were some good people in TGM. I was one of the people that started TGM.
Oh.
I left very shortly after. And I left for the reason that TGM has fallen apart. I left because I realized in the direction that it would go, there would not be power to the Grenadian people. And so I saw the signs early and I left. As other people saw the signs, they began to leave as well. But there were really good people who came into TGM expecting this kind of conversation that we're having now, expecting the kind of impact that our organization is giving. They have goodwill for the country and they really want to serve it. And so I would like to say at this juncture that Grenadians shouldn't disqualify everyone that you saw, whose faces you saw at TGM, because some of those people had really goodwill and still are valuable for the country. That said,
right.
Power, the difference number one is the leadership of Power. The same reason why I hit that button saying, hey, let's do something, and it became TGM. This is the same reason why we started Power now, except that Power is built on a different type of culture. Power isn't here as a flash of lightning. Power is a group of concerned non-political Grenadians. We are not politicians who just simply think that is going to be the Grenadian responsibility. All of us, not politicians, because we're the ones that have the power. We're the ones who give them a job, that we had to take it into our hands. We know the pain ourselves. We experience it. We see what's happening in our communities. We know that there's a solution. We want to be part of it. And we're not unique in that way. We simply created an environment where the people who feel that way have a place to put what they want to give. Right. So Power is a container for people who see that Grenada can do so much better and that they have a vision and they're willing to do it without the compromise. Because it's possible, you know. It is possible to run, and especially with a business model for leadership, not a political model, but a business model for leadership, and setting this up with the same kind of energy, the same kind of resources, the same type of mindset that a business organization has to have, with the competencies that structures in place, so that we don't have the ingenuity gaps that we have now. And we have that in Grenada. We have, I mean, imagine how many people come back from our diaspora and try to give their talents to our government. Say, hey, I'm an engineer. I see what are conditions of our roads. I work with infrastructure. I'm willing to help. I'll do a design for free. I want to be a part. I want to contribute to where I see the need is. The door gets shut in their faces all the time. Local Grenadians here who don't want to be part of the status quo, who understands that we are a small country, regardless of how well you are doing as a Grenadian locally. If everyone does not do well, if we don't change directions, Grenada could become like Haiti. That segment of the population that could be referred to as them people, that segment of our population that's struggling in poverty and illiteracy, they're not that far from your neighborhood.
Right.
They have needs, and we all have to reach in. We have to all get our hands in there to help build those communities so that everyone can be safe, everyone can thrive. We're all affected. It's a small community.
Right.
So power, what's different about power is that we're down there in the streets. We're not off in the by and by living in our gated communities and feeling as if we are exempt from the population's pain. We are the population. We're ordinary Grenadians, and we mean this. This has to be done for our children.
Right. So let's talk about the candidates and the leadership of power. What's the structure? What's the model? Break it down for us. Who's the leader of the party, and who are some of the candidates?
Sorry, our structure is the same as any company. So we have a president, we have a marketing director, we have an operations manager, we have someone responsible for technology and cybersecurity, all the things you find in a company. We have an administrator, we have an administrative team, accounting and financial management team. We have all the same things that a normal company will have. And what we've looked at is all the areas of development in Grenada that will add into the ecosystem of development so that we lift everything at once. Tourism affects healthcare. Healthcare affects tourism. Healthcare affects productivity. Entrepreneurship affects productivity. Education affects entrepreneurship. So we have this cycle, and we've built systems within that we can plant this model into the country where you begin to see people dream again. People begin to innovate because it's possible. And it's not that we don't have innovators, but if you're innovating, you're constantly knocking the door, you're constantly pushing on the wall, and nothing's moving, and opportunities aren't opening for you. You get weary, you get tired, and the next time you feel that energy, that spirit of innovation, that creativity, and you see a problem you want to solve and a need you want to fill, and an area that you can monetize and develop income for yourself, you pause. You hesitate because you know the barrier is waiting for you to hit you in the face. We want to remove the barriers. We want when a young person or an older person, I'm 51, I have dreams still. I can still innovate, I can still create. I want in Grenada that when someone thinks about an idea, that the first thing they don't think is no behind it.
Right.
That there are possibilities and that it isn't difficult to access possibilities. I don't know if you've tried to work through the civil service here, but everything here is difficult. Simple things are difficult. Do you realize, Junior, that someone in St. Patrick, someone in St. Mark, St. John, someone on the far end of St. George's, to get a birth certificate, when they take that bus to town and then to Tantine, they got to walk up that hill in the heat to go to that office to wait for that birth certificate. Right. Do you know how many people aren't physically well enough to do that?
Mm-hmm.
When they get to that building and they need to go to the third or fourth floor, they have to take the steps. Just this small little humps that one after the other, they're in your way and they wear you out. You try to open a business. By the time you get through the process, you're worn out. You have no more money. You don't have the energy anymore. Simple things are difficult. Those are barriers. Those are barriers that need to be removed. And they're not difficult.
Some people might say, well, okay, we hear that. You want to make a political impact. Why not join one of the established political parties? Why not combine your resources with the NNP or the NDC? Why create a whole new political party, which you're going into an election, knowing fully well you're not going to fool the entire slate, right? So why not join up with a political party and how do you respond to that? And how do you respond to when people say that you are essentially taking away votes from one political organization in favor of the other one because of just your presence?
Okay. So I don't believe in the whole taking away votes thing, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But for the first part of it, why start a whole new entity when there are two existing ones, which there are more, but there are two major existing ones?
Yes.
First of all, the incumbent party's values are exactly why Grenada needs an organization like Power. We believe that they have depleted the country and have put structures in place within the system to keep Grenada where it is. And we don't agree with that. So it'll be hypocrisy, first of all, to even align with that, because it's not part of our value system.
Okay.
Number two, the opposition party. I would like to say, before Power began, I did go to the opposition party. I did. I went because I thought my objective is to bring my skills to the country. It doesn't matter to me where it goes in that sense, as long as it goes where there's an alignment of values and where the impact could be achieved. I don't want to waste my time. I value what I bring to the table. And
Right.
I didn't come to take, I came to give.
Right.
So I did go to the opposition party. And
Okay.
yes, I was received very well.
Okay.
However, I also discovered that there was some deep misalignments of values, that I did not get substantial representation, that those misalignments were understood. Now, I will say that in the opposition party, there are some really good people with good hearts and good intentions. I firmly believe that, and I would work with any of them at any point. Power is what power is. We will power up whoever is good for the country, because we're about Grenada. So within our opposition party, we believe that there are people there who would do very well for the country. And we would love to see them spread their wings and fly, because Grenada will fly with them. We will support that. This is not about politics. It's about the business of the country. And the business of the country requires competence. There are lots of there's a lot of gaps in Grenada where people with competences are not placed where they are best serving the country.
Right. But no organization is perfect. Let's put it like that. No organization would fit all your needs and everything that you aspire. You know, there are things that need to be fixed, and that's where you negotiate. You find some place that you could work with and you work towards it. Some people are saying that Power look as if they just want power. It's just a move to elevate themselves or project themselves because they don't want to work with an existing organization. They just want power. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, it's not true. And anybody who has heard anything that we have said from the time we've been talking for the last 3 weeks or so, in all integrity, examining it, no matter which direction they do, they cannot come to that conclusion in honesty, because it just isn't true, first of all.
Right.
Number two is hypocrisy is quite prevalent in politics. If Andrea Rapier was interested in politics, I could be with the incumbent party and I could be with the opposition. I know what I bring to the table as an individual. I know my ability to lead, my ability to execute, my ability to take care of people and to have an impact and to communicate in a way that people understand it and feel valued. I also know my competence in getting things done and making sure projects reach their destination.
Right.
I know what I bring to the table and I know my network. That is not an issue. I don't mind placing that wherever it will work for Grenada, but it has to work for Grenada, not
Right.
for politics. Not for politics, for Grenada. And that's important to me as an individual. So I will put it wherever it will work, but it must work for Grenada. And if you listen to complaints of Grenadians, you will hear of all the projects that have started that never finished. Money invested, that there's no evidence, there's been no result, there has been no proof, there has been no completion and implementation of these great ideas, because there was not a commitment to take it to the finish line to ensure that the people are the intrinsic beneficiaries of those programs. And so they were not completed and implemented. I don't want to be part of that cycle. I can stay in my comfortable life if in that case, right? Because again, I didn't come to take, I came to give. Now, the wonderful thing about being the giver is that you kind of have a monopoly. You get to choose. You get to choose. And that's what power is. And Grenadians need that same right to choose. They need to have that right to harness who they are, develop it to their potential, and then understand that they are the asset in the country. I'm not the only asset. All Grenadians are the assets of the country. And within power, it's a group of people who says, I can't do politics, but I could give to the country. Where can I place it so that I can give it? And this is why we've kept an open policy in power, that we will support the candidate, regardless of party, that we recognize to be someone that will bring power to the Grenadian people.
Right. I want to open up the phone lines in a little bit. In fact, I put the number back up on the screen so if folks want to call. But I don't think I was clear on the list of candidates so far. Or probably you said it and I missed it. Who are the candidates that you have slated?
Ian Roberts,
Okay.
Arisha Joseph,
Okay.
and I.
Okay. Yesterday I heard you mention Denison George and what's his name? Earl Maitland.
Collaborate. Yes.
Collaborative. So is Earl Maitland from GEM running as a part of Power? Also is Denison Forrester George running as a candidate for Power in that constituency? How is that working out? 'Cause I heard you mention his name yesterday.
Right. So both these men have built their political capital. And political capital is just the work they have done on the ground, the branding that they have done, and how they have built their own reputation and image politically. We have found, looking at one another, that we are a reflection of each other's values when it comes to what we want for the country. So Power's commitment is, like I said before, we will not place a candidate to contend with someone that we believe is good for the country, because that person brings the value already. So we will support and we will add power, meaning support, meaning endorsement, meaning whatever we can do to help that person win that constituent.
Right.
And I believe, and they're not the only two people like that, but we are willing, we want Grenadians to think of their vote as a vote for power, your power. And if Earl Maitland is going to be the person that delivers that in your constituent, vote for Earl. And we firmly believe in that. We stand behind that. And we hold a commitment through. And that's going to remain a part of our model, whether this election or another.
Let's take a call. We got a call coming in. Caller live, where are you calling us from?
Good night. I'm calling from the south of the island, Grenada.
Grenada, south of the island. How are you doing? My favorite part of the, well, my second favorite part of the island. How you doing? I'll get in trouble. It's my favorite part. Okay?
All right.
Grenada in general. Go ahead, caller.
First of all, good night to your panelist. I can't remember her full name.
Andrea.
Andrea.
Yes.
Now, to her, I've certainly heard a lot of intelligence, goodwill, good intention. At the same time, I've seen a lot of egotistic attitude that I think coming from a place of love. Now, you said that you went to the NDC and you saw that they have a lot of good people, good ideas, and everything coming forth. However, there were things that weren't aligned with you. Now, even in marriages or companies you go to, you never find anyone that is totally aligned with you. So if you really wanted to help and you really think that they were good, then you can work together and try to see if you can iron out and how you can pull together and to make these misfits as close as possible. Because even with the people that you're going to pull to your power, they're not going to all align with what you want to achieve. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you asking the Grenadian public to vote for you at this time where, in my opinion, and this is solely mine, for at least the last 10 years we were raped and robbed of our resources, and there is an opportunity by another party who has been trying to gain momentum to alleviate us from this culture. And at this time, you're coming there, and I don't see a lot of well-thinking Grenadians, would jump on the boat bandwagon at this point to power, because, as your words, Junior said, way yiddy day all the time. Now it's...
Hey, that was not, McCullough, that was not my word.
Well, your program.
Okay, I that was not my word. Let's be clear. Okay, but go ahead.
All right then. Well, I think it was the incumbent PM, right?
Right.
Where did they?
Where did
We
they?
needed someone to match or someone to wake up the idea. People have been working hard to wake up the thought and wake up the youth. You coming to take some of those votes, if anybody is able to go to I wouldn't say anybody's persuaded to do that, then you weaken in our long fight for something that is not viable, because the power does not have enough constituency leaders. Second of all, you seem not very good at sticking at one thing. You're jumping from everybody. TGM, that, because you can't find nobody else. And even though I think that you have a good intention, your timing is wrong. As someone from the Army, you should know that your timing is out at this point. I believe you have good intentions. I'll make two suggestions. Either you try to see whether or not you can join with a party. Obviously, you're not going to go with the NNP from what you say, and see what you can do, or you can probably wait until we were out, see how things goes, and then probably for the next election, which I highly doubt, things don't go, you can probably set to see if you can come to rescue and do bring things together.
Right.
Have a pleasant night, and I want to say you are indeed intelligent and seem very articulate about what you want to do, but there's a lot of misfits at this time.
Thank you, caller. She will respond. I'm out for go ahead.
Well, first, I'd like to ask
By the way, you did anticipate that you would get that.
Of course. I'm prepared for it. So I'm not sure if the caller is aware of the number of surveys that's been done in Grenada over the last 18 to 24 months that shows that 40% of the voting population is refusing to participate in this election. 40%. That's a very large number. Reason? 28% of the population who will not vote said because they want neither of the two predominant parties. The other part of that, 12%, refused to even answer the question, disinterested.
Mm-hmm.
When you have an electorate where 40% is disinterested in the political process, there is really not a good representation of what the population wants for the country. That 40%, it's not that they don't want to have a say in what happens in the country. It is that they have been disappointed and they don't see a choice that represents them. And that's important to respect. Now, both the existing parties that she referred to have their bases. In whatever state their bases are in, they have their bases. Those same surveys show that 32% of voters said that they will vote for the incumbent. About 26% said they will vote for the opposition. That 40% says, hands off, I'm out, I don't want to be part of this. That's unfair to our entire population.
Mm-hmm.
That there isn't a representation that pulls everyone into the process, regardless of the result. And that's something that has to be recognized and responded to. Because if our two predominant parties were meeting the needs of Grenadians as a whole, because 40% is a large part of our voting population, to say that they want out. I'm not even going to vote this year. I'm done. Power is to bring that engagement to those people. They want something. They love their country. They want to participate. But they're saying, on the menu, I need another dish. And power perhaps speaks to those people. But whether we speak to all 40% or not, what is certain is that Grenada deserves prosperity, opportunity, wellness, equality, and regional impact. Grenadians deserve it. And when they vote for the elections, they need to vote recognizing what's at stake and what the power of that vote means, what spending that currency means.
Mm-hmm.
So to say, based on what the caller said, so to move over and corner our population into just these two choices. And I will say that there are other choices in the country that in the press, it just seems to be two parties. There are other people. There are other people who have been serving, like Earl Maitland you mentioned. Earl has raised funds to send so many patients who couldn't afford care, and there is no care in Grenada for surgeries overseas. He has helped families build homes. The man is a marshal of philanthropy, and Grenadian families know when to call him. And they have results. They have tangible proof that he leads and he delivers. And then when it's time for election, the noise drowns out the sound of his work.
Yeah.
And then we are beguiled into this seduction and we forget the value of that vote. It's time to recognize the value. And if we achieve just that, then we've achieved our objective. If we achieve waking Grenadians up to say, wait, let me contemplate. Let me think about this. And let me put value where value belongs. Let me get the most I can get out of my vote.
Let's jump back to the phone line. We got a caller on the line. Caller, you're live. Where are you calling us from?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm from Grenada.
Yes.
We as Grenadians know, as being in the opposition, the incumbent has a habit of paying to defragment anything that they see that has strength to oppose them. I'm not saying Ms. Rapier is part of it, but where have this party been all this time? When all the struggles, where have they been? Now Grenadians have woken up. What is she saying? They didn't come to wake up Grenadians. The revitalization of NDC has awakened Grenadians and opened the eyes of the youths and the minds of the youths. And now it's at a position where the incumbent have seen change and the wind of change is about to blow. All of a sudden power has come. Whom is to say isn't one of those that is being paid? This is my comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, caller. Yeah. Are you a paratrooper? You the paratrooper that they're talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to laugh at that one because of the impossibility of what she's even suggesting. It's not true. And I will respond. I will respond by saying this. I will refer back to the numbers. And I understand that Grenada isn't a data-driven country. But believe it or not, the politicians are using the data, right? The politicians are paying the surveyors to take surveys so they can see how effective they're being. They can see whether or not their campaigns are working and how they need to change things. We have access to the results. Regardless of what we tend to feel emotionally, or we think based on what's happened in the past or what we see in rallies and all of that, when surveyed repeatedly, Grenadians continue to say 32% will vote for the incumbent and 28 or less for the opposition. And this survey was done 4 months ago, after the opposition did their restructuring. So it isn't power that is giving away the win to the incumbent. And where has power been all the time? I love the question. By asking the question where power has been all the time when all this has happened, it indirectly asked the question, where has any one of our political parties been when all of this has been happening all the time? Power started last year, but our opposition party has been here for 34 years. Power started in 2021. And power, again, is a collection of concerned Grenadians, just like the caller, who has decided, I have to do something now. After the pandemic and everything that happened, and people started struggling even more, people started saying, I've got to do something now. I have to do something. I can't wait on politicians now to change my country. It's going to be up to me. And I think we should respect that. I think we should honor that. We should value that. And whether Grenadians decide, like our caller who asked the question, whether she decides with the incumbent or the opposition or any of the other parties or even power, she should make that decision that now as a citizen, I have a part to play and I'm going to do a part, I'm going to do more.
Right. Let me ask you that survey, Andrea, because I'm not privy to the survey. You mentioned it. I never seen the survey. What I know is that last election, 20,000 people did not vote. 20,000 people. This disgruntled block of people did not vote. What I also do know is that the population is about 78%. The youth makes up about 70-something percent of the electorate. So I'm not privy to the data of this survey. Where is that data? Where could we find that data? Where could we examine the data? Who did the survey? All of those stuff.
All the parties have that survey. Well, not all. The two major parties have that survey, but that survey was done by a company in Canada that is run by Justin Peer, and he's actually a Grenadian in Canada.
Is
And
that
this
survey available online? I could pull it up. I could look at it. We could analyze it. Who was surveyed? All of this
I
stuff.
can give you the contact information, and you can reach out and get that information. But it is public. It's public information, so I'll
Right.
send you the details afterward. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that would be good to
But
go
you
through
know,
that.
Junior, you just mentioned 20,000 did not vote last year.
Yes.
20,000 people did not vote last election. That's significant. That is significant. And if those people fold their arms, the result will be the same again. And based on the surveys, there hasn't been much of a shift. And like everything that goes up comes down, right? So when there's something new, it gets attention and goes up. So when the opposition party made their restructuring, the energy went up and there was a movement. Everything that goes up comes down. It will happen with power. It happens with the best of everything, the best companies, the best dancer, the best players, the best musician, the best everything. Everything that goes up comes down. And life is an ebb and tide of investing and rising and falling. It's how nature balances everything.
Right. Okay.
With that, the numbers have not changed. Have not changed because the people who are not voting have not been provoked enough to move it. And I think part of that is the perspective. Because you see, if I'm voting green, then I don't consider anyone yellow.
Right.
Because I'm loyal to green. I don't even look at who it is I'm voting for green, as long as it's green. So I don't evaluate the actual candidate. If I'm voting yellow, I do the same. Power is saying, and someone has to say it. So we are taking the responsibility to say it because, again, we're not leaving it in the hands of politicians anymore. Power is saying, whether you are traditionally green or yellow, vote as a Grenadian. You may still end up voting yellow because that was the best candidate when you voted intelligently. You may find that you may encourage someone in another constituent, your girlfriend, to vote green while you're voting yellow because you realize that that candidate is going to bring power to Grenadian people. You may encourage somebody else, you know what, in that constituent, vote for power there. Vote blue because that person is going to be good for Grenada. Broaden the perspective of how we are making the decisions about our country. Because what are we going to do if we don't? If we don't, we continue to have the same. Because we're not moving. Everyone is staying right where they are, comfortable, and no one wants to disrupt. No one wants to cross the line. Let's look at the candidates. Let's look at each candidate. Give them that respect to look at each candidate and evaluate who is going to be good for Grenada. Imagine them all in a white T-shirt.
Right.
Imagine all the candidates in a white T-shirt, and then look at who will be good for the country, and then just make that choice.
Yeah, from a canvas. Let's take a call. We got another call on the WhatsApp. Call on the WhatsApp. Go right ahead. Where are you calling us from?
Good night. I have one question to ask Ms. Andrea.
Yes.
Where and when was this survey conducted? How recent? Because nobody asked me about how the rest of the people that I know.
Yeah.
So I want to know when was this survey happened. I want to know that things change quickly. And as time has been by, people have been seeing and having reasons to change their opinion and to decide what they want to do. For me, I've never voted, and I swore that I would never vote. But this year, you believe me, I would be one of the first in line.
Junior, I didn't hear everything. I heard about the survey.
Hold on. Caller, the question, one of the main question Oh, she hung up. I was kind of having problems hearing it as well. I sort of kind of heard the first part of the question, but I think one of the things that she was saying is that who conducted the poll, and because they never asked her anything, and what people have to understand, a poll is just a snapshot. It's not like the whole population. It's just a snapshot of a particular place. So I guess that's what one of the things she was asking. How come they did the survey and she was never asked, or families were never asked anything?
Right. So the surveys, just traditionally how polls are done, they randomly sample the population. So they will spread it out over every demographic. So they'll ensure that there's some youth, there's some elderly, there's some male, there's some females. They'll spread it out over a demographic and get a small sample of each. And the questions are not just piled into, here are 10 questions. The questions may come one today, one tomorrow to your cell phone, or you may get a phone call. But it's accumulated and that data is put in and quantified, and then the results speak for themselves. And when those surveys are repeated, they validate whether the previous survey was a good reflection of the population. If it's consistent, then they know that the previous survey was probably true to its reality as well. If there's a huge disparity in the result where, wow, this is nowhere near what we saw last time, then they may redo that survey again just to ensure that they have as accurate information as possible. But whether we like it or not, those polls are being utilized to make decisions. As just how the system works. We didn't make the system.
Right. Let me ask you this. Under a power-led administration or under a power-influence administration, what and how would power deal with stuff like pension and gratuity? How would power deal with the question of bi-weekly payments to public to employees? These two things. How would power deal with this thing going in? First,
okay,
pension and gratuity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the situation with our pension, it's done. It has to be repaired going forward. What are the options? Well, we have had some conversations with some financial analysts and economists to hear what are the possibilities, what can happen. Grenada currently has, and I'll be brief on that because I honestly don't want to disclose a lot about it, simply because I think that's an asset that we have that we want to hold on to for now until whoever's going to fix it, we contribute to that. But Grenada has currently 3 financial institutions where there is enough funding, if pulled together to create a stronger national fund, will solve some of the problems that we have with pension and gratuity. And it'll also create an environment where Grenadians can reinvest in Grenada. So it's not at risk. So that it's not at risk. So that's how we would handle that. Now when it comes to wage and compensation, we have a whole different concept of how wages are even supposed to be paid. Mm-hmm. That would be most profitable for Grenadians. For example, if you're being paid once a month, you're actually leaving money on the table. About 300 EC a month, actually, the math says. Mm-hmm. If you're paid once a month, because the months don't all have an equal number of days. You're actually giving your employer a few free days of work every month. True. Right?
Yes.
So let's just look at that as something that has to be recognized and has to be corrected. The business is still open, it's still making money, but that employee is now working for free because they're not getting paid for those extra 3 or 4 days because they're getting paid once a month.
True. They get it back in February though.
If we go to bi-weekly payments, then we stop that issue. But I want you to think now of compensation and from another model. What if people were paid for result versus time?
Result.
For result. For productivity versus time. I want you to imagine if I show up at work and I sit there from 8 to 4. And I'm saying this because looking at Grenada, we look at how can we increase productivity, increase wages and compensation because our per capita is quite low now. And it needs, even our cost of living, our inflation rate, is just an imbalance there with what we're making and what we need to spend for our lifestyle, for the basic lifestyle. So looking at wages and compensation, if you are paid not for time, but for your actual effort, for your actual work, productivity will increase, thus allowing a platform for increasing wages. So many people complain that they go into an office, people are sitting there and they're doing nothing. There are several reasons for that. One is perhaps that there's nothing to do because the size of government is too big, because we're not digitalized and it's inefficient. However, by expanding industries in Grenada, where there's a whole lot more work, by opening up entrepreneurship where more people can go into business and actually have what it takes, including financing, to succeed in business, you change the landscape of what work looks like in the country. So now people are working in a broader scope of fields, new markets are open, people have more options on doing things that they love to do, that they're passionate about, cross-training and skill development, so people can now fill these new markets with competence.
Isn't that the same thing like getting paid on commission?
No, not exactly. But it's very similar, but not exactly. And let me give you a case in point. If the goal today for me is to call every day, my boss has a goal, I want you to call 20 customers a day. 20 customers a day. I want you to close 5 sales a day. If I come to work from 8 to 4 and I do that by 12, can I leave? Or do I need to stay to 4 o'clock to be able to get that full day's pay? Shouldn't I be able to end my workday at 12 when I have met the goal? No, I have a choice if I want to go past that. But shouldn't I be able, know that I have achieved and exceeded my day's benchmark, that time, I now own that time? So my pay has not diminished, but my time and what I can do with it has increased. And that model does not work in every single industry, but it's a model that is relevant for some of the industries in Grenada and will serve some people very well. Students could take advantage of that. Adults who want to continue to go back to school and cross-train and still work, they can take advantage of opportunities like that.
Which part of the world uses that strategy right now for the population? Is that a novel idea?
It's not a novel idea. There are companies that do it. And it isn't, and like I said, it's not something that you can put across the board because industries have different requirements, labor requirements. But it is definitely things that companies implement. Some companies implement it partially. Some of them don't implement it at all. But again, I firmly believe, and Power believes, that we have to look at Grenada as what's relevant for Grenada. What works best here, what works best for our people. And for those who that works for an industry that it works, we should be able to be flexible and to expand that. And that's good business because you increase productivity for that person, that individual. That person can actually go to school and work at the same time, have 2 jobs, have a business and work for a company at the same time, increasing the possibilities for their prosperity. So there is a way to be creative about it, relevant for Grenada, for what works in Grenada.
What about the idea? I just want to get you on the record on that. Now, 20 years ago, the incumbent prime minister said that he explore or he is willing to implement the concept of twice per month payment, fortnightly, right? But that was never implemented. So the NDC now came in and said, Deacon Mitchell came in and said, that's an idea, that's what they're going to do. The Prime Minister came back and he said the reason why it was not implemented was because after he looked into it, he realized that it was not possible to do. Case in point, the VAT payment, which is a chunk of the earnings that comes into the coffers of the government to pay public employees, that payment don't come in until the 20th of the month, 20. So it doesn't make it, the money is not in the account at the time to pay on a bi-monthly basis. What's your take on this analogy? Who is right and who is wrong in this scenario? Which party who's right and who's wrong in this scenario, based on your experience?
So I want to take it beyond a right and a wrong. And let me explain why. I agree that people should be paid at least bi-weekly. And maybe that doesn't work for every organization, but I think in Grenada, people could be paid bi-weekly. Let's shift from that. So you could give 1 point to the opposition leader for saying that. Now let's
Right.
go to what the incumbent said. The funds are coming in on the 28th, and therefore there isn't the funds, the fluidity, there isn't the cash flow to be able to do that. Well, that means that you're working from a zero balance, right? As government, we don't want to work from a deficit. And this is where the business model works. We need to expand industry in Grenada so that we could fill our vault. The government has to place a base so that there is an extraction point. So what comes in on the 28th of January is not what's needed to pay salaries in February, because we need to be able to create a base. Grenada could be productive. There is money making opportunities and resources in Grenada that can really build the middle class, pull people out of the extreme poverty, pull people up from the poverty level, increase our middle class by pushing more people up into that area, increase in income and productivity. Grenada really has what it takes to do it. And if we do it and we do it right, we don't have the issue of an empty bucket from which we need to pay salaries once a month. We could fill the bucket, we put a base so that our cash flow is not depending on the immediate intake and expense. If you run a household like that, we call that living from paycheck to paycheck. Not even a common household wants to be run that way. You want to have something in the bank so that what you're spending now isn't scraping your bottom. If something comes up, you can respond. So if we would expand industry and begin to, and I had a conversation the other night on another show where we were talking about the national debt. And I made inference to the national debt. The issue with national debt is GDP, having a proper national debt to GDP ratio. GDP is cash flow, the bloodline of what money is exchanging hands within our own economy. When I buy and and I pay you for it, and what you take in, that's our GDP. If we just keep moving that money around and we're not taking money from another economy and bringing it into ours, we have the issue where we can't move to fortnight pay. By creating industry and increasing and scaling exportation, we now climb into someone else's GDP, extract money from that through sales, and put it into ours, increasing the buying power, increasing cash flow, so that now I can spend more, you can make more.
But that takes time. That takes time to implement. It takes time to create that buffer.
Yes, it does.
It takes a long time to create a buffer. Could an administration do this within, say, their first term?
Yes, that could be done within the first term.
Could it be done in the first 90 days?
I don't think it can be done in the first 90 days. I think structures can be put in place to facilitate it being accomplished over that 5-year period within the first 90 days. So the structures can be put in place in the first 90 days. And some of those structures include legislation as well. The policies as well have to support that kind of adjustment and innovation. But structures can and should be put in place within the first 90 days that we could begin to build the economy, moving it out to where you can actually have those low-hanging fruits within the first 2 or 3 years, and then expand from there. Where Grenada is now, any administration who has goodwill for the country needs to be thinking of how we could quickly deliver something within the first year in administration. Because we are all coming from a deficit. We were in deficit before the pandemic. We're even further in deficit. Our people in poverty are in extreme poverty now. There has to be a jerk reaction very quickly to pull people forward. So there has to be plans in place so that the first 90 days you're laying the groundwork to get Grenada moving, to get Grenada working, and to bring sustainability to the places that are most vulnerable first, of course.
Yeah. But is that something you could legislate? Because I'm thinking that you probably could try to implement that from the public service. But the private sector, you can legislate that the private sector pay bi-weekly. It's based on cash flow for that particular business.
That is correct. But legislation does have an impact on the private sector. How does the grocery store price their products? Based on expenses, based on cost of operation. So our tariffs, for example, have an impact on what we're paying for prices, and that has an impact on inflation in Grenada.
Right.
So policy and legislation is always in the foundation, and it's one of our primary transformation models. In our primary transformation factors in our ecosystem, legislation is at the top, because you've got to make rules where all the players have a benefit, have an opportunity for benefit, and can be able to flourish and have prosperity and opportunity and wellness and
Right.
equality within that. The playing field has to be laid first.
But some people might say, if you legislate this and an employee has, say, an employee have 50, a business have 50 employees, and it's legislated that you pay at this particular time, and when the company look at its cash flow and it's not going to make it, the company might just fire half of its staff, send home half, because you could only balance the books with 50% of the employees that he work with. Then you're in a problem because you have more unemployment.
Okay, there's something called change management, Junior. Change management is how you strategize implementing new ideas and innovation and policies. So with bringing change, with bringing innovation and new development and expanding new markets, change management will look at who are all the stakeholders, how are they impacted, how do you get buy-in, and how do you take these stakeholders along the curve so you don't lose anyone in transition. So the legislation cannot just come and implement and say, effective the 1st of July, companies need to pay. That is not how that works. And I must say, and we say this in Power and we repeat it over and over in the press, that it is all Grenadians that has to be intrinsic benefactors. That means you're giving something, and beneficiaries, which means you're getting something. All of us have to participate in the next level of development that Grenada is going to need. So that means our private sector must be part of the conversation in those legislative changes, not in manipulating legislation, but from a change management standpoint, from an impact standpoint, an impact on the Grenadian who is coming to work every Monday morning. That must be part of the conversation so that that change is benefited on both a macro and micro level. At the high level and at the low level, the change must affect and benefit everyone. So it's not a matter of coming in and just rolling the dice. It must be strategized so that you don't lose anyone. And remember that with opening new markets, Junior, you're creating new opportunities in sectors that needs employees, right? You need human resources in those areas. So as we open, by default, opening new markets and scaling exports, people will shift themselves into these opportunities. So they're hiring over here and they're paying more, or that's a job I love to do. So now I'm going over here and I'm going to do that. They're offering free training here and then I'm guaranteed a job. I'm going to go over here to do that. So the economy is going to shuffle itself. The human resources are going to shuffle themselves to where they're comfortable and where they could find their own power.
Guys, Andrea, I mean, we could talk all day. We could go up until 10 o'clock if it was up to me. It's great having this conversation because these are the conversations that would impact people's bread and butter at the end of the day. You know, families that's watching this stuff, and sometimes they listen to politicians speak, and it seems like it is so far over their heads. And sometimes we have to do a vlog or we have to do a video to break it down into fine nitty-gritty so people understand what they're really saying. So, you know, it's good having this conversation, and we need to have more of these types of conversation. I think it's good for the population. So I really appreciate you coming on to chatting with us. But, you know, that's it. We're already about half an hour over the time frame, and we have to wrap. We definitely, you see time fly when you're having fun.
But Junior, honestly, I really enjoyed the interaction. I want to say thank you to your tough callers. You know, I love when women stand up and let their voice be heard. And power is here, and we want you to have power, whatever the path is. And it's a political path, it's an economic path, it's a health path, but we want you to have prosperity and opportunity and wellness and equality. And Grenada can have a regional impact. If we do it, they know they can do it.
Yeah.
And so lead and let's do it. And it doesn't hurt to differ. It doesn't hurt to have opposite opinions. True. It's when you bring those together, and one of the callers alluded to that, it's when you could bring them together to get to the outcome. right? But we need to be able to bring it to where it gets to the outcome and not just be all talk. And then at the end of the day, we're back in another election cycle and Grenada has not gone forward. We've gone backward. Let's make this election count. Whoever your candidate that has power, bringing power to Grenada, whoever that candidate is, make that intelligent exchange. That's your asset. That vote is your currency. Do spend it well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Andrea. And I have to compliment anyone that put themselves out there, whether it's on a political campaign or whether even doing a show, even coming on Ride Along. People are sweat when they come on the show, you know. When they're in the hot seat, they're sweating, I'm telling you. Because facing the audience is not easy. It is not easy. You get ridiculed. People would pick you apart. Every single thing that you ever did in your life is now on display because you're a public figure. So I commend everyone who put themselves out there to take on any political or public office. It's going to be a bumpy road, and I hope you're in for the ride.
We are. And, you know, and I personally really believe this, that as long as I can remain authentic and truthful, it doesn't matter what the challenge is, what the audience throws at me. I could be consistent because it's authentic and it's truthful. And I keep my heart always wanting to benefit other people. It's up to them to take it. It's up to them to receive it. Everyone has that choice. But to hold the integrity of that purity and the honesty and truth will always stand. It might be beaten. You know, Jesus was on the cross and he looked like a mess, like there was going to be no good. Day 3 always comes. It always comes. And so I want people to hear the truth, and I want them to take for themselves, what they can apply to their own well-being and to their own uplifting, and not make it personal. Not make it whether they like me or they like power or they like another party or they like. It's not about that. You have an intrinsic sovereignty that you're blessed with, and you deserve what has been assigned by your maker to that. And you should have it. I don't see why not.
Absolutely. Andrea Rapier, thank you so much. Let's do this again sometime.
Certainly. Thanks for having me.
Nice having you on. All right, guys, this is your opportunity to chime in live with me. I'm going to be on again for another 10 minutes to get to your calls. What do you think about power? Right? What do you think about power? What do you think about the timing of power? Let's talk a bit. 718-701-5720. You could call on the WhatsApp or you could call on the phone lines. Let us have this conversation right now. Yeah. And they say that power is, I think I wrote it down, prosperity, opportunity, wellness, equality, and what was the R again? I'll get it. Somebody probably wrote it down. But I thank power and anyone, let me tell you, anyone for taking on that job to go into public office, public life. It's just not an easy task, guys. It's not an easy task. I'm not there, I'm far from there, but I come on here and sometimes, you know, people forget that you're human. People forget that you're human. You know, the ridicule and the, you know what I mean? So you sometimes have to put on this strength, this overwhelming strength, almost like a mask sometimes. But at the end of the day, we all are human. And I give kudos to these guys, man, politicians or anybody that take on public life, and just get ready for the bumpy ride, because it will come. 718-701-5720. Give us a call and let us know. And also, I want to find out from you guys, are you influenced at anything that power presented here today? Are you feel more inclined to say, yeah, I'll give power a try? Did power sway you any way at all? All right? Let us know. Give us a call, 718-701-5720. I'm telling all you, I'm leaving the phone line open for 10. Leaving the phone for, so you guys could call and chime in. Yeah, 10 minutes I'm giving all you. Well, we're down to about 7 minutes now. So if all you didn't or don't, if all you didn't or don't have anything that means she did a good job in explaining her whole thing. That means she did an impeccable job because Ali don't have much questions. Sasha St. John celebrating her birthday today. Guys, happy birthday to Sasha St. John. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Sasha. Sasha, I would sing for you, but you know how that does go, right? Happy birthday to you. Let's see what else you guys are saying in the chat. WhatsApp. Again, giving you guys an opportunity to chime in. I can't see where I can give all the opportunity to chime in. Sebastian sent me something that's really funny. No. I would do a vlog of this later. Lord have mercy. So no questions, right? No questions? No questions. That's how we like it. No questions. She was very thorough in explaining what she had to say. Guys, let me tell you, if you have a business, right? If you have a business, and some people think of a business that has a big storefront, you in a building somewhere, you have 10 staff, people working for you. No, a business, right? You are working, you are building, you're building a future. You're building something by your own. Now, oftentimes what we see is that businesses find it hard to move to the next level because they cannot afford the advertising budget, right? That's where Right Along Live comes in. We have a micro business advertising package. Let me see. Micro business advertising package. And that micro business advertising package is geared towards micro businesses from 1 to 5 employees. So you could be the only employee there. We have an advertising package that could take your business to the next level. If you want to find out about a micro business advertising package, give us a call and we will show you how you could send your business viral to the world, right? That's why we are here, to help you out. Caller, you live? Where are you calling us from? Hello? Hello? Caller? Oh boy. Caller listening to her computer. Caller, listen to me on the phone line. All right. All right, when you call, guys, listen to me on the phone lines, right? Listen to me on the phone lines, not on your TV. Okay? Right, so the micro business advertising package is geared to small micro businesses from 1 to 5 employees, right? Give us a call and we'll show you how we could market your business. Very, very reasonable advertising packages to help you take your business to the next level. Give us a call, the phone number on the screen, 718-701-5720, or just inbox us. Just inbox us. I will tell you and show you how you could take your business to the next level with our micro business advertising package. Right Along Live. Thank you so much. Peace out, everybody. Could we have that ad line up there? For if you have a business and you want to advertise, this is what you do right now. Check it out. From Right Along Live, keeping you updated with everything happening in your world, from breaking news, election coverage, and a whole lot more. Now, do you have a business that you would like to market or advertise right here on our platform? Then give us a call at 718-701-5720 or inbox us right here on Right Along Live. Take your business to the next level. Advertise on Right Along Live. Number 1. Good night, everyone. I'll catch you guys again tomorrow. Peace out.
Williams Funeral Service serve you with dignity and compassion as you mourn. Every day, we embark on the journey of life, and one day, the journey will end. It's on that day that you can entrust the celebration of life of your loved ones to David Williams Funeral Service. Call 718-291-38.
Well, it's on right along, so it's happening here.
Came over here. What does it mean? You know, I grew up in what I guess we call a typical family.
We break all the stories, and that's just a fact. And that's why everyone has a story to tell.
Right along live, I mean, yeah, it's the real deal.